for the first time ever. Obviously, they call my number up, sit me down, and they're like, you tested positive for HIV.
How long after that did you notice symptoms?
About 2.5 weeks later, like I got canker sore. I was fatigued. Like I was taking 3-hour naps in the middle of the day. I wasn't going to work because I was so fatigued. I was so sick. I had cold sweats, then fever, then chills, then cold sweat, fever, and chills.
There was a video that went viral on World Star, which was one of the ways you ended up finding out about some of these women that he had infected.
Multiple comments. He's infecting women with HIV. He's infecting innocent women with HIV. And I'm just like, this is like too specific for it to just be hate. Like this is too specific for it to just be a troll. And I'm just like, I'm not the only one. Like,
what was the breaking point? What made you leave and be like, you know what, this is it, I'm done?
I start feeling weird again in my vagina. I go to my doctor, I get tested, and then she, like, I've never received results quicker than, she called me the next day. She was like, listen, you tested positive for chlamydia, and you know who gave it to you. You are spilling the tea. I mean this with true sincerity and not trying to overhype it. There were psychopathic tendencies involved in this person, like needed actual like evaluations and actual help. It's not by a stretch.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Talk with Koiya. As you guys know, this podcast is brought to you by Talk, Test, Treat. If you are located in the Central Florida area and you are looking for somewhere to get tested, go to www.talktestcfl.com to find a testing location near you. Today, we have a very special guest on Talk with Koiya. I'm very excited about this interview. This individual reached out to me on social media. We had a mutual friend, and she was like, hey, I love the work that you do. I've begun telling my story. I would love for us to get together at some point and just have a conversation. And at the time, I remember we were wrapping up season 1 of Talk with Koiya, and I was like, oh, no. I got to get her on season 2. I don't know how we can make it happen, but we have to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Bianca.
Hi everyone, and thank you, Koiya, for having me on. It is honestly an honor, a deep honor to be here. You know, I be gassing you up, girl. So everything that she said was true. Someone actually sent me your story, sent me it via story. And I was like, this is great work. I live in New York City and I have not seen the kind of work that you're doing. So God bless you in your ministry, girl. You're really out here changing lives.
Oh, thank you so much. And as are you, because you have started telling your story. And I have been so in awe ever since we've had that first conversation. But before we get into that, I would love to play the Talk with Koiya card game. So I'm going to pull a card. I'm going to read it aloud, and then I would love for you to answer the question, okay?
Copy.
All right. So, why is it uncommon to talk about HIV openly?
I guess one word, stigma. Stigma. And so stigma is something that dominates and permeates our societies, our communities, especially when it comes to HIV. There's 2 types of stigma. There's stigma that people would face, or people like me face out in public and in communities, but then there's also self-internalized stigma, which is also extremely debilitating and even hard to pinpoint, because that's what comes and that's what brings the shame, that's what brings the fear, that's what brings the self-loathing and the self-hate. That's self-internalized stigma. So when a person is recently diagnosed with HIV, they have to be aware that there's stigma coming at them from all angles, not only on the outside, but also within. And also, I'd like to add that stigma isn't just, it's so complex and it's so nuanced, because it has to deal with fear. It has to deal with projections. It has to do with ignorance. So it's really hard to combat fear or stigma without really peeling back the layers that it comes with. So we have to definitely just be patient when talking about it or talking to people about it or sharing your stories, understand that if you are doing this, you are going to get some pushback because people are generally just very afraid. And that is the purpose of stigma, to be so afraid that you cannot see another reality outside of the one that you are creating in your mind, which could be based on lies, can be based on information that we've had from the 80s. Okay, so it's not true most times. 9 times out of 10, the fears and the stigma that we are holding on to and projecting onto others is typically rooted in on a cold-blooded lie.
You're absolutely right. And I think things like what you are doing by telling your story, it's helping to change a lot of that stigma and change people's thought processes that we aren't thinking how we were back in the 80s. And it's like, it's 2024. We've evolved so much. We know so much more about this. So, yeah, I love that. All right, let's do one more. When did you first hear about HIV and AIDS? Tell us that story.
I guess the first time that I ever heard about it was in my sex ed class, but I mean, I was very, very young. I didn't know how it could relate to my real life at all. And being that I was so young, I probably was in middle school. So very, very young. I wasn't even having sex. So it seemed like something so out of the realm of possibilities for me. And the way that it is presented to young people just seems like "Ugh, that could never happen to me." And we all have that mentality, especially when we're young and our worldview is so limited, right? So we think that none of these things could ever happen to us. And until they do, because HIV does not discriminate. It doesn't discriminate race, creed, age, gender, sexuality. It does not discriminate. And so, yeah, the first time was like in middle school and it just didn't click. It didn't connect. In fact, I think that's kind of what started that self-internalized stigma because I was just so afraid. But then I wasn't given the tools to practice safe sex or to speak about it in a way that wasn't taboo. And I also feel like having like one sex ed class regarding HIV is just like, what are we doing here? Might as well not even have done it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And we don't have enough life experience when we're younger to know how to apply this knowledge and put it into areas. But then later we go on throughout life and we live life and we experience it. And it's like, oh, 12 years ago when I learned about, now I see what they're talking about. So,
To add that, outside of that, outside of that experience when I was like maybe in eighth grade, I did not hear about HIV until I was diagnosed in 2019. So I did not hear about anyone that had HIV. I didn't hear about anyone that was worried about getting HIV or getting tested or none of these things, none of these things. And, I was out here in these streets, we probably will get into it, but I lived a lifestyle that wasn't necessarily very safe or prudent, right? Like I was not living in a way of a person that loved themselves. However, I always kind of was very vocal. So when I would get tested, I would always say like, "Oh, I'm gonna go get tested." I would post my results and people would shame me even then like, "Oh, you're posting your results because you're afraid." And I'm like, no, I'm posting my results because it's something that I am thankful for, that I'm proud of, and also to help others, encourage others to get tested. And yeah, even when I was negative, people didn't like it. So.
yeah, it's one of those things that are very taboo, especially in the black and brown community. Black and Hispanic people, we are the leading cases, but we are the ones that have the most misinformation or are the ones that are the most ignorant when it comes to this thing. And being that we are the leading cases, it's like we should equip ourselves with the most knowledge because we're more susceptible to it than anyone else. So I think that both of our goals is to just like educate our community like, hey, this thing is out here, it's thriving, it very much is alive and well. And if it's going to be out there, here's what you need to know about it. So yeah, yay! I'm so happy we're finally being able to have this conversation. So let's hop right into things. So something very interesting and unique I find about your story is on the night that you possibly could have contracted HIV, there was something in you a couple days before that was like, go get tested, you know? And in my opinion, being a woman of God, that was God, you know, doing his thing per usual, that put something on your heart to say, well, let me go to get tested before I go on this date. But I don't want to tell your story. I want you to be the one to tell us. So just start telling us your story. You do a great job at that.
Oh, thank you so much, Koya. Well, so like you were mentioning, the day or the night that I possibly most likely contracted HIV. And the reason that we say that is because I ended up sleeping with the person who infected me, who intentionally infected me multiple times after that first night. So, that's the reason that I say it in such a way because people always want to know, do you think it was that night? I mean, I don't, perhaps, right? But so I was a person that was never really afraid of getting tested. It was something that I felt was my responsibility to do, being that I really wasn't um, living a godly lifestyle. I was living in wickedness, filled with sin, and I am a godly woman myself now. Thank you, Jesus, for redeeming me and bringing me back into the fold. And so, I felt like, well, if I'm gonna be doing these things, right, I might as well go get tested. The day that I was supposed to go on a date with another person, um, I decided to go get tested. And being a person who at that time, I was a woman that had very low self-esteem. I did not love myself. I didn't think that I was worthy of love. And a big part of my identity and my affirmation and my validation came from men. So being that I was gonna go on a date, I decided to drop everything and go get tested, which is so it's uncharacteristic to a person who needs the validation from a man. And so I went to the clinic, I got tested, and it took longer than expected. Apparently, a lot of people got tested that day. And the guy that I was supposed to go on a date with was like, listen, it's getting a little bit too late. Like, let's just reschedule it for tomorrow. And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. And that's just honestly when it comes to divine like timing and just the divine appointment of God, like we do not know what that looks like. And God knows all things. He's omniscient. He knows the end from the beginning to end. And so something like that just seems like it was so unavoidable. It could have been avoided if I was following Christ, but it was just kind of meant to happen the way that it happened. And so we don't end up going on a date. We reschedule for the next day, and the date goes to smithereens. We end up not vibing, not clicking, and we ended up going our separate ways. But at this point, I was already very intoxicated. And so I end up sort of bumping into the guy that infected me with HIV. It just so happened that he was filming a podcast, just finished filming the podcast with the group that he was doing his thing with. And that is how we bumped into each other. And honestly, if I had not gotten tested, if I'd gone on a date the day before, the night before, I would have never met him.
So you meet this guy. Well, first off, let's back up. You go on a date with another guy. He takes you to Nobu. He's wining and dining you. He's buying you expensive bottles of wine. You even go to the bar down at his hotel. And then, you know, you just decide, well, you ended up getting a little bit too intoxicated. Didn't end up working out. You guys split from the date. You go your separate way. You're walking down the street and you see someone filming you
Yes.
out of nowhere, just like you're intoxicated.
You are spilling the tea.
Yes, I want to make sure we get all the tea, girl. So you're super intoxicated. You're walking down the street, and you see someone filming you. And as a woman, it's like, why are you filming me? Who are you filming me for? Where's this going? And then I can imagine you're not like in your right state of mind at the time because you've been drinking some. So you're just like, what is going on? So you try to stop him from filming you, and he punches you.
Yes.
Like, girl, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is crazy. He punches you in the face. Then this other group of people happen to see it. You fall to the ground. They see it. They come over.
No, they were all in the same group. This was
Oh.
the guys that was doing the podcast with him.
No. I missed that part. So the guy who punched you was also a part of the group that tried to help you.
Yes.
What?
Yes. And okay, so the first voice that I hear when I come to after getting knocked out is the guy who infected me. And I have a video of that. I should put it in my YouTube video in one or two of them where he's like, "Yo, you good, Ma? You good?" That's the first voice that I hear. This guy just like coming to save the day, like my superhero, like my savior. And I'm like a hot mess. I'm like, I'm crying. I don't know what's going on. I don't like, listen, I do not know anything that's happening. And so, um, the next day we talk about it, and he said that the reason that he helped me wasn't necessarily out of the kindness of his heart, was because he saw cops at the corner. And if you know anything about New York City blocks, they are long. So it's like, okay, why didn't the cops see something and say something and come up to us or whatever? They probably peeped the cops, and the block was like rather long. So he just didn't want the cops to get involved in their business. So he was just like, let me just pick this girl up and like move her to the side so like we don't get questioned by the cops. And I was like, this is so kind. Um, and so they kind of decide that they need to do something with me. Like they can't just leave me there. So I'm kind of thankful for that, I guess, right? I don't know what would have happened if they would have left me there. I really don't know because that's not what happened. And so the guy who infected me decides that he's gonna like put me in his car, or when there was other people in the car as well, and decide to take me home. Instead of like dropping me off at a police station or at a hospital or whatever, he's like, well, I'm just gonna take her home with me. And that's what happened.
Wow. Okay. So he takes you back home, and then what happens?
Well, I kind of like freaked out a little bit. Well, okay, rewind. I do panic a little bit because I just don't know what's happening, and I don't know, like I said, whether or not I was alive. But and then the pain of the eye was like, oh, you are alive. And then that's when the memory started coming in, and I just felt so devastated and so disgusted with myself. And I turn around and I see him, and he just hugs me and starts like I start crying, and he's like, you're so lucky that I was there to save you. Like, it could have been so much worse. Like, you could have ended up dying. Like, you are so lucky that I was there. Thank God I was there. What would have happened to you if I wasn't there? And just immediately just planting those seeds, and of just planting the seeds of like essentially worship, right? Like, I am your savior. I am the reason that you're still here. Like, without me, you would be nothing. And it might seem so subtle, and it may seem so insignificant to others, but as the relationship plays out, that was the kind of dynamic that we had. And so at that moment, when he hugs me, I also realized that I'm naked. And I am, like you said, completely unclothed. And I don't remember having sex with him. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, did we have sex? And he turns like the color of my wall. He turns so pale. And he's like, no, no, we didn't. And I'm just like, you don't have clothes on, I don't have clothes on, like we obviously did. And I'm like, I just got tested, like did we use protection? And I've never behaved in such a way that I was just so like, I just got tested, like what do you mean? Like I was actually like panicking, freaking out. And he's like, yeah, we use protection. And like he lied about not having sex. I should have just been like, he's obviously lying about using protection. And so like he tries to like calm me down and like reassure me. I'm like, when was the last time you got tested? I just started like grilling him about like the kind of questions that any like sane person would. And he's like, I just got tested a few months ago. Like, I'm good, like whatever. And like just really trying to like appease me with the answers. And then he hugs me again, like bringing the my attention back to that night, like to the night before. And I just start crying again. And then I'm like, I can't go to work. What am I gonna do? My parents are gonna see me. Like I just started thinking about all these things. And again, he's just like telling me about, like you need to do better. Like just really trying, like he's treating me as someone who cares about another person would, but he did not care. He did not care at all. And so um at that point, like uh he kisses me and starts like we start he starts caressing me and just like showering me with like affection and just it seemed like compassion. And that was something that I felt like I didn't have for myself, and I felt like people would just take advantage of me because of the traumas that I had and the traumas that I carried and the unresolved issues that I like the strongholds that I still had in my mind. And so when he did that, I was just like, wait a minute, like just like 2 minutes ago, he was telling me of like how much of a mess I was, like how I needed to do better, how I could have died, how I could have like he was literally like scolding me. And then now like he's showering me with love and compassion and affection. It felt like it felt like the love of a father, like something that I've always longed for, something that I craved deeply. And so, and he knew this, like he knew this. And there was like a formula to the way that he would, there was a formula to his mannerisms and the things that he did. And so at that point, we were intimate again. And I think that a part of that, I think that a big part of that was because I didn't remember having sex with him the first time. I think that he was just trying to cover his tracks. I don't know if he actually wanted to have sex with me, um, because later I found out that it would hurt him a lot to like be intimate with people. And so I think that he was doing that to be like, well, you can't say that I raped you because, we just had sex and you consented. So like, you know, if I was this horrible person, why would you consent to having sex? And that's what I believe, but I don't know, we never really talked about it.
And so when did you get to the point where you finally do get an HIV test, and what happens next?
Okay, so time goes on, about 3 months exactly, because this I got tested in June, so we met in March, April, May, June, 3 months. And so at this point, the acute stage symptoms have finally subsided. I lost about 18 pounds in those 3 weeks, and um, I didn't ask any questions. Let me tell you, the moment that I woke up one day and I didn't have a fever, I didn't throw up, didn't have diarrhea, I didn't have a rash, I didn't feel fatigued. Like the moment that I woke up and I felt like a human being instead of a zombie, um, I was just like, oh, I guess it's gone because they did say it's a viral infection. You just have to wait it out. Throughout that time, there will be chronic little symptoms that might not seem like anything, right? It might not seem like anything super alarming because you're not sick, you're not coughing, you don't have a fever, you don't have the traditional signs of sickness in you, but there are things that if you pay close attention to your body will be trying to explain to you or tell you that there is something amiss here. And so for me as a woman, it was again the painful sex and also a consistent chronic yeast infection. And so the yeast infection was extremely uncomfortable. It was extremely painful. I would get on yeast infection medication and it would go away. I would even go on BV medication. So like BV medication is so aggressive compared to like yeast infection. Like it completely wiped out the flora in my like areas, right? So there was no bacteria. Starting off from scratch, that's not really recommended. Like that's not something that you should do like all the time unless like you suffer from BV, which in that case, there's things out there that we can take or a person can take to alleviate that or to make that better. But I would wipe it out and within 2 days it would be back like with a vengeance. And I was just like, hmm, I need to do something about this because it was just very uncomfortable. And so at that time, I didn't have insurance. So instead of going to like a gynecologist or like my primary care physician, which thank God I now have access to all of these doctors, but instead of doing that because I didn't have insurance, I went to the clinic and I'm like, listen, it's my vagina. Like if anyone is gonna know anything, I mean, I guess it's the clinic. And if they don't have the right if they don't have the right resources to deal with what I have, then they can refer me to a person and then I will start paying or doing whatever I have to do in order to get the help that I need. But let me just go to them first. So I went to them not thinking that I had anything crazy, although the night before, and I recorded this and then I don't know what I did with the footage, but the night before I had this feeling in my spirit, like really like deep in my gut that I'm like, everything is gonna change tomorrow. Like I don't know what's gonna happen, but everything is gonna change tomorrow, but I know that I will get through it. Like I know I will get through it no matter what news I receive, I will get through it and it's gonna be better. Like I'm gonna be better. And I didn't know why I was saying this. I like I was it I struggled to go to sleep, and I was never like afraid of getting tested. So I can't say that it was because of the test, but I felt like just my life was just going to be transformed forever. And then I go get tested, and I was just waiting for them to tell me to go home, to like wait for like the chlamydia, syphilis, gonorrhea results. Like, if when you go get tested, the only thing that is rapid that I know of is HIV. Everything else you have to wait to get results for. So I was just waiting for them to clear my HIV rapid results for me to go home and then await any results. If I needed to come back and get a shot or a pill or something, I was just like, okay, whatever. But they called my number for the first time ever. Obviously, they call my number up, and I'm just like, "Mm, what's this?" And I go in, there's a doctor and a social worker. They sit me down and they're like, you tested positive for HIV.
So once you get your diagnosis and you find out that you're positive for HIV, do you have a conversation with him about, do you know, have you known, did you know you infected me? And then also, what was his reasoning for not wanting to get on medication?
Yeah, so after I tested positive for HIV, they put me on birth control and it was like a whole thing. The whole thing was so traumatic, let me tell you. But they tell me like, you don't necessarily have to tell anyone anything just yet. Wait until your confirmatory results. I leave and I go straight to his house. I'm like, I need to talk to you. And well, it's not funny, but like I guess I can laugh at it a little bit, but like I when I was expressing to him what had happened, I used like the most scientific words. I'm like, yeah, so I went to the doctor and my white blood cells came out in an abnormal way. He was just like, yeah, like so the HIV thing, yeah. Like it was just like I was trying to say it so indirectly, and he was just like, I'm like, I tested positive for HIV. And then this entire time that I'm on my way to his house, which is like about like 40 minutes or so, I'm just like thinking about his reaction to like me telling him this. Like, I'm thinking that he's gonna flip out, like he is going to lose his wits. I'm thinking that he is going to blame me. He's gonna say that I gave it to him. And like that was also threatening my relationship. So I was just like, oh no, but I don't want him to think that because I didn't. And then I was thinking that he was going to be afraid or like break down and cry or some, I don't know what I thought, girl. I don't know. But let me tell you, the response that I received from him was not what I was expecting at all. Because I told him, I'm like, I tested positive for HIV. This man looks me dead in my eyes and he says, oh, and it continues doing what he was doing. Like I didn't just tell him that I tested positive for HIV. And I was just like, oh, like I didn't even have words to respond because I had responses for all the other things that I thought he was gonna say. But an O was just like, I took a deep breath and I was just like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? Okay, babe, so like, do you want to go get tested? Like, should we? Because I didn't want him to feel like I was accusing him because again, the dynamic of our relationship was very much like master servant, master slave of relationship, superior, inferior. So I'm just like, I don't want him to think that I'm accusing him. So I'm just like, babe, do you want to just go get tested? Like we could go get tested together if you want. Um, we need to like see what to do because if you need to get on medication, then you should go to the doctor to get on medication. Like I can go with you or you can go alone, like whatever you want. Like let's just do something about this. And then he told me, he was like, listen, Bianca, like whatever you have going on is whatever you have going on, but don't bring your negative energy around me. And I was like, what? And like he kind of like yelled at me, and that was something that he didn't really do. So he was just like very much like, that's it, end of discussion. I don't want to talk about this. Don't bring this negative energy around me. And I just like sat in the corner of his bed and like sobbed like silently. He left the room and I just like felt so much confusion. Like that entire day was just such a whirlwind.
Did you ever have a conversation with him about why he chose not to be on medication or not slow the process down?
No, no. I never talked to him about it. The few times that I would try to talk to him, like he wasn't very open about things, like the little bits and pieces that I would get when he would be vulnerable about his life or talk about things about his life, like they were very few and in between. And then come to find out they were all lies. Like even the things that I thought like he was telling me that were like from his childhood and certain memories and stuff like that, they were all lies. And it's not like he shared a lot. So like the moments that he would share, I would be like, wow, like we're really having like a bonding moment. And no. But again, he knew what he needed to do in order to keep his victims, I guess, at bay. He refused to talk about it. He refused to get on medication. He refused to go to the doctor. He never even said HIV. He would just call it negative energy, bad energy. Like he never even like verbalized what it was. And so when I realized that, this is the person that I love, and I don't even know if I loved him. It's so hard to tell when you are in a relationship like that what you were feeling. So I say love very loosely, but when I realized that the person that I loved wasn't going to get the help that they needed, I just tried to do what I could to make him as comfortable as possible.
And of course, because of the nature of the relationship, like you're saying, you felt inferior to him, that you had to like tread lightly and almost walk on eggshells. So,
Yeah,
yeah, not almost, you did.
yeah, yeah.
So you speak about the pain you experienced throughout your relationship, and you guys kind of stayed together for some time. What was the breaking point? What made you leave and be like, you know what, this is it, I'm done?
Yeah. So a big part of I was never ready to leave him. Like I never wanted to leave him. Like never in my life did I want to leave him because it felt like a drug, like and the most lethal kind of drug. And you know that it's bad, you know that it's deadly, you know that it's robbing you, stealing you of your joy, your resources, your youth, but you just can't let it go. That's the best way that I could describe this relationship and being in a relationship with a narcissist, period. And so one day he calls me over, I come over, and calls me over and I come over. Like just that verbiage, just that language. Like he just called me over like, like as if I was like an animal or something like that. And so I arrived to his house and he's getting ready. Like he's like clapping his cologne, like looking really cute and fly. And I was just like, oh, like where are we going? Like he didn't tell me that we were doing something. And he's like, oh no, like I'm going, like you're staying here. And I'm just like, I was chilling at home. Like I don't need to know what you're doing. Like I would have been at peace at home. And so he's like, I'm gonna go to a party at not Hofstra University. And Hofstra University is just a university out here on Long Island. And mind you, at this point, like the guy who infected me is 37 years old. And Hofstra University, like you're talking about university students anywhere from like 17 to like 21, 22. And so like I'm just like what like I was just so upset and so confused and just angry with myself because I'm like why am I putting up with this, like why the heck am I doing this. um yeah, it was a very long night for me and he didn't come home until the next day 3 p.m. and um we argue, it's like a whole thing, and that was the first time that I like was like I'm leaving, like I threatened to leave and whatever, and we ended up making up. We have sex and like a few days go by. I'm not sure if we're intimate again within that time, but I know that he had a trip to Washington, D.C. because he spent a lot of time in D.C. at that point. And then I had a trip to Detroit because I was doing like a real estate thing. And so I start feeling weird again in my vagina. Like I start feeling weird down there. I'm just like, I don't like this. And at this point, I'm undetectable. I see my doctor all the time. Like I have a great relationship with my doctor. Shout out to my doctor. And I call her up and I'm like, Miss, I don't feel good. Like something's going on. And she's like, come get tested right now. Come get tested. Because she did not like this man. She's like, you need to leave him. Like, why are you still with him? Why are you defending him? Like, I did not let anyone say anything negative about him. Like, everyone in my clinic literally hated him. I go to my doctor, I got tested, and then I've never received results quicker than she called me the next day. She was like, listen, you tested positive for chlamydia, and you know who gave it to you. And I literally, like, at that point, my heart dropped. I started crying because I'm like, it wasn't just that now I have proof that he's cheating on me, because in my mind, this entire time, the duration of our relationship, I was like, I know that because he's high value, right? And like, and people still talk about this now. High value men can do whatever they want so long as they're, and he wasn't even fulfilling his needs, or like he wasn't like providing for me. He wasn't doing any of these things. So like, was he even high value? But besides the point, he exuded himself as such. And so that whole rhetoric of like high value men can do whatever they want, they can sleep around, you be his peace, you be submissive. Um, and so like I knew that he was sleeping around, but I'm just like, he knows that I have HIV, which means that he has HIV because we don't use protection. So whether or not I gave it to him, he knows that he's exposed, right? Regardless of who gave it to who, he knows. So he wouldn't be out there having unprotected sex. Like he just wouldn't. That's not something that he's capable of doing because like he knows that there's something going on with him. And so that entire like the June, this happened in October. So June, July, August, September, October, those like 5 months, 4 months, whatever, I was just believing, choosing to believe that he was not having unprotected sex with women. That what he did with me when he infected me wasn't like intentional, but like it was just something that happened. And that I was like chosen to walk in this path with him and to like be by his side throughout this thing and help him get through it. So I was just like, he wouldn't do that to anyone else because like he's reserving, and this is how I rationalized his love for me. So it was like he's reserving the best parts of himself to me because like he's already infected me and he doesn't want to infect other people. So he wouldn't give his best parts of himself, meaning his raw sex, his raw intimacy with people, with other women. He would just reserve that for me. And like I'm telling you that there's so many women that have been brainwashed to believe this, and it's so infuriating to just hear it. So I'm so sorry, trigger warning to those that are experiencing this or have experienced this before in the past. But so once I found out that he had given me chlamydia, not only did the proof was there that he was cheating on me, but more importantly, he was having unprotected sex with people. Therefore, he was intentionally infecting other women with HIV because no longer was this omission of guilt, like I didn't know, I didn't know. He 100% knew, and he was infecting women with HIV. And something that really broke my heart is that being that I was very like sex positive or whatever, like getting tested all the time or whatever, I was very aware that chlamydia is an STD that is very popular amongst college students, especially when they live like on campus and stuff like that. And it just so happened that I acquired chlamydia after he went to this college party. So I don't know the events of that night. I don't know who it was, but in my mind, I envisioned a young woman. I envisioned a girl who was a teenager, 18, 19, barely an adult, not even legal, who granted gave him chlamydia, but she in return got something so much worse. And my heart broke for that girl. And that day that I found out, I went to his house. I had the keys to his house. Like I said, I went to his house. I grabbed my things and I broke down. I told, anyway, yeah, I left and I never looked back. When I left, it's so interesting because he did reach out through his like other accounts and like just was like, I found like burner accounts that he was hitting me up from, which was so weird. Like the things that he would do, the kind of people that he would follow were seems to be like people that he had infected just to keep tabs on them. And he was just like, yeah, like now you're gonna like tell the whole world. Like he didn't even say like I'm sorry or like please come back like you know whatever. The only thing that he said, he's like, yeah, you never loved me. That's why you're gonna go and tell everyone. You just want to destroy my life. You want to break me down. And even in that, there was that brainwashing. There was that programming because he was like basically speaking to like the goodness, right, of my heart. Like, and I was just like, no, like I don't want to do that to you. I don't want to destroy you. I just can't be with you. Like, and so he just wanted to make sure that like I wasn't gonna say anything. And so, which was like just, it was just so disappointing. It was really, really sad.
So you mentioned he had a burner account that he followed other women that he infected that he kept tabs on. There was a video that went viral on World Star, which was one of the ways you ended up finding out about some of these women that he had infected. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so shout out to Montega. He's another person that is not very liked in some spaces, but shout out to him because I can say that we were mutuals through the person who infected me. When my best friend informs me that there's people that are saying that he's infecting other women with HIV, I hit up Montega and I'm just like, I need to share my story. Like, people, I need to find these women. Like, I think I needed to prove it to myself. And so I hit up Montega. I tell him everything that's going on, everything that I've experienced, and Montega is floored. He is floored. He is flabbergasted. He's disgusted. He has so much empathy, and he's like, we need to talk about this, and I'm gonna help you find these other women. He didn't, not once did he doubt me. Like the entire time, like there was never like, oh, but maybe you did this, or maybe like coming from another, like from a man, I was just like, I never had experienced that level of like I'm gonna believe you. I'm choosing to believe you on this, and I'm choosing to step away from this. He's like, I do not want to be associated with this person anymore, and I'm gonna help you. And I thought that was very brave of Montego to do, just because of the kind of spaces that they were in. Out of that, I found about 5 or 6 other women. I can't remember right now, because it was 2020 and we no longer have contact, but 5 or 6 other women who were intentionally infected by him. And we created a space, like a group chat on Instagram. And at this time, I had already met my now spouse. Um, and like these women were not okay. They were so devastated. And actually there was a guy who hit me up, and his ex was one of the guy's victims. He's like, listen, this is my story. I got tested. This was my BM. Like we were like rocky, and um she met him, and she was cheating on me with him, and like like I wasn't perfect, like our relationship was far from perfect, but she also got infected and she has suicidal ideation. She wants to kill herself, but we have a kid together. I don't know what to do. And he's like, seeing you gives me hope for her. And just started like, I'm telling you, like I felt like it was something that needed to happen, and I'm really thankful that it did happen, that we were able to get together. And I think of them often, and I hope and pray that they're in a much better space now than where they were in 2020 when I met them. They're survivors. She had, number one, more resources. She was much more in like just had so much intellect. Like she was in another mental space than I was. I was just trying to like put one foot in front of the other, and she was like, I need to be vindicated. I need justice. And she asked me, she's like, listen, do you mind coming with me, and like let's bring this up to the FBI or someone that can help us. And I'm like, girl, anything that you need. I didn't want to press charges on him. I wanted to be as far away from him, but again, that part of me that I want to help others and serve others, I said, yeah, let's do it. We go to the FBI, they turned us away. They followed up with us, they asked us questions, and they're like, listen, there's nothing that we can do for you. Like, we can't prove intentionality. There has to be intent behind this, and we can't violate his HIPAA protection rights. And so there's nothing that we can do about it. Try going to like local authorities, go to your NYPD SVU, Special Victims Unit. And we did that, and there was no follow-up. There was no follow-up. We had that conversation that one time, and that was that. They're like, sorry, we're sorry that this happened to you guys. It's very unfortunate, but you know.
But yes, okay, so what's next for Bianca? If people wanted to check you out, plug all of your socials, let them know where they can find you, view your videos, all of it.
So what's next? I mean, honestly, I'm just praying and seeing what God does. He's been opening a lot of doors. Hopefully we can do something together, you and I, in the near future. But I'm doing just a lot of advocacy work, and just I want to create a space where people that are HIV positive can build community, because something that is something about this virus is that it's very isolating, especially in the beginning. And even, let me tell you, there's people that have had it for like 10 years and no one knows about it, like one or two people. And that breaks my heart because like no one really knows you. And it's just, it is very heartbreaking. So I hope to build or create a space where people can interact with one another that are living with HIV, or support groups for people that have loved ones that are HIV positive, and just a stigma-free space where we can like converse, ask questions, talk about things that might be controversial, just so that we can see where we fall on this topic, because it's again something that there's no clear guidelines on how to live. I mean, life is just so complex. And so it's good to have different voices and different lived experiences that can help motivate and encourage people that might feel lost and don't know where to go. But for now, you can just find me on my socials, which is on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. They're all the same handle, which is at Bianca period Ordonez underscore. So it's Bianca period Ordonez underscore. My first period last name underscore. And it's the same for all my handles. My emails are found in these handles. You could just shoot me a DM, shoot me an email, and I'll get back to you at some point. So
I love that. So, we have added a new segment to the show that's called Give Them Their Flowers. And I want to give you your flowers just for your strength and resilience and unwavering ability to remain a woman of God, for your advocacy, for using your voice in a way to educate our community and do so much more. Watching your videos, for me, and I've been doing work in this space for a minute now, just to see how vulnerable you're able to be. And it's not easy to make these type of videos and then put them on social media for the world to see and have an opinion and drop nasty comments. And you are unwavering in just your journey of continuing to drop videos, continuing to advocate, continuing to bring knowledge to our community. So I just wanted to give you your flowers and say thank you. You are appreciated, and I love everything that you do.
thank you so much, Koya. Thank you so much for having me. It's been honestly a blessing and an honor. And I pray that it reaches the people that it needs to reach. And I pray for you as well. And I pray that God blesses you and continues to guide you and cover you with his grace and his love. May you continue to grow in his grace and love as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So, obviously, this is a virtual interview, so you will get your edible flower arrangement that we're sending. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Girl,
Super dope. So we got you some of it's gonna be I'll let you see it. I don't want to ruin the surprise, but obviously have your shipping address. So we are shipping that out to you today, and we cannot wait for you to receive your flowers because you deserve them so much.
oh my gosh, those are the best kind of flowers, girl. Oh, yes.
Yes.
So much. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much.
You're very welcome, and thank you for joining me today.